Welcome to the ColivingCircle podcast. I am the host and the founder of ColivingCircle, Paul Burke. And today we have a very special guest, Todd Baldwin. He is an entrepreneur, a college dropout, and a landlord. He was recently profiled by CNBC Make It publication, which has over 1 million views on YouTube. We're definitely going to talk about that. He bought his first rental property at 23 years old. And he has an amazing YouTube channel that we're going to plug now and at the end of the episode as well. Todd, thank you for joining me, man.
Well, thank you for having me on. That was one hell of an introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you definitely deserve it. So for anybody who hasn't seen, we're going to include in the show notes a link to the video CNBC did. And before we get into any of the stuff regarding co-living, renting, landlording, all that, talk about what that was like to all of a sudden see that on CNBC and it's got over 1 million views. What sort of feedback have you got from that?
Man, so that was crazy. Yeah, I was on CNBC. They interviewed me, basically came to my home here in Seattle. And on their website, on the CNBC website, in the first week, it got 2 million hits on their website and then another 1 million views on YouTube. So it was crazy. Wow. So, yeah, it was my first time with any sort of meaningful exposure, definitely my first time trending in the news for something like that. And the comments have actually been quite mixed. Some people think it's really great and they're motivated to learn from me and start investing in real estate. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of internet warriors and online haters. So I'm dealing with that as well, but that doesn't really bug me too much.
I watched one of your videos in which you said you're quitting YouTube because all the haters coming at you. And I thought that was one of the most fascinating things about watching the video. I always look at the comments to see what people are saying. And I could not even believe all the negativity. And literally it was just people being haters about your life and some of the assumptions they make about who you are or who you're going to be. Or the relationship with your wife is like, it's mind blowing to me. But what does that felt like to all of a sudden have a bunch of random people so seemingly angry at you? You seem to not care too much, but does it bug you at all?
No, I mean, I'll admit it bugs my wife a lot. She was actually pretty sad when it first came out. And so we had a conversation about how she's just not going to read the comments anymore. And I don't read most of them. But no, I mean, honestly, I take, and this is going to sound arrogant in itself, but winners aren't leaving bad comments on somebody else's content. You know what I mean? Like if you're succeeding in life, you don't have to, like if anyone like leaves, you know, on this podcast, oh, Paul Burke, I hate you and you suck. It's like you have time in your day to do that. People who are succeeding don't have time for that. So it doesn't really bug me. If anything, I take pity on them because if their life is so empty, they need to raise themselves by bringing other people down. It's just kind of sad.
Yeah, I agree. There's people who do have too much time on their hands and really, it's just like none of that was necessary. I will say there were a couple comments that made me laugh so hard. Talk about that a little bit because I'm a very, very frugal person. And I like how the video sort of went into your story about, you know, being raised by a single mother and growing up with not a lot. For me, my parents got divorced and both had hit really tough times. And my mom is an immigrant from Egypt, so she was very poor in Egypt. She came here, they were very poor. So there's a natural frugality in me that I don't know, like no matter how much money I will have, I won't feel comfortable spending even just a little bit of money. No, I'm getting ripped off like by some big corporate company. Like how do you feel about some of the comments regarding frugality and some of that stuff? Where does that land for you?
Yeah. So for me, you know, I don't, and I want to make, you know, the distinction here. I don't have a problem spending money. I have a problem spending money on things I don't care about. And frankly, most things just don't appeal to me. Like I don't want to go out to eat every single week, or if I do, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, I get paid for it. You know, and I don't need to rent a nice, cool apartment right now because what I want to do is save money so I can buy an apartment building. So you know, a lot of people say that, oh, I'm not living my life. I'm afraid, or I'm hoarding, or, you can't take it with you when you die. But I have my goals are so high that I have to be frugal, because what I want out of life is just, crazy amount of luxury, which comes with sacrifice and delaying gratification. So my wife and I right now, we share a car. We live in a house with roommates, and we've been doing that. I mean, we've been sharing a car for almost 3 years, and we've been millionaires now for like almost 3 years too. We've been millionaires for well over 2 years now. Still live with roommates, still share one car. So we're very frugal, but I don't think I'm missing out on anything. And I'm still in my 20s. I'll be able to splurge when I'm 30. We got time.
Right. Right. That was the crazy thing too. I was like, I've seen Todd. Todd doesn't look like impoverished. He doesn't look sad all the time. Like Todd seems like a really happy
Mm-mm.
dude. I don't think he's like, like holding his wallet like this everywhere he goes. And that's definitely not you. But people have weird conceptions on sort of your life from that video. Like you said, you live with roommates, and you don't necessarily have to, but you guys choose to. What do you think you gain from that experience, and what's your relationship like with your roommates?
So, I mean, the biggest thing we gain is we live for free. We've been living for free for 4 years. It's awesome. If anyone, isn't familiar with it, it's just house hacking, where you live in a house, you rent out the spare bedrooms, hopefully offsetting your entire mortgage payment. And that's what we have done. We've gotten to the point where not only is our mortgage completely paid for, we actually profit a couple grand every month just on the house that we live in. And my relationship with my roommates is really solid. I mean, we get along, we have game nights. It's not forever. I think they're actually moving out this year in July, but it's been fine. And it's for us. We're gonna get excited to not live with roommates anymore, because we've been doing it for so long. But I have no regrets of living with roommates for the last 4 years. Not at all.
So one reaction from the video that's all over the comments is, you don't have to be living with somebody. You choose to do that because, like you
Mhm.
said, it offsets your mortgage. Do you feel like there's any sacrifices that you guys make as a couple?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would be really fun for us to live alone, and we will soon. I mean, literally in a couple of months, our roommates are moving out, and we're not releasing those rooms. But my wife and I, we've been married for 2 years. We've been together for 9 years. We've never ever lived alone together. So this is going to be like a really interesting thing. I mean, it's going to be the first time living alone as a couple coming this July, and we're married, and we have money to live wherever we want, really. But no, I mean, it's when our goal is to have like just a really nice mansion on the lake. Like that's been our dream since we were in college. And when we're sitting in our mansion on the lake, I'm sure there's going to be some person that asks, "Oh my gosh, how did you get this mansion on the lake?" And our answer will be, we had roommates for 4 years, and we lived for free for 4 years. And even after becoming millionaires, we still had roommates, and we still drove one car. Doing all of that allowed us to save for this mansion. I mean, that'll be our answer. So no regrets, but we are making some short-term sacrifices for those long-term gains.
Okay. And I think that's a good way for a lot of people to think about it. If you can stack up as much cash as you can in your 20s and invest that like you're doing in other rental properties, then in your 30s and 40s, you're going to see that really come to fruition and compounding interest. And had you made good investments, you'll be able to make more great investments, and you'll be able to eat out every single day at the nicest steakhouse if you want to. But we know we know that's probably not something you want to. So this podcast is about co-living. And co-living is sort of a newer concept. But when me and you met over RentHoop, actually, which is an app for finding roommates, I remember being super interested in the way that you managed your properties, because it is much more like co-living than it is a traditional apartment rental, in which you never see the landlord except for when they pick up their check, or there's a maintenance request. Talk about what a renter gets from you today, so that people can understand that landlords can operate their place like a co-living space, and that leads to greater profitability in their rentals, essentially.
Absolutely. So to put everything in perspective and to sort of clarify it, I have 6 rental houses, and I rent all of them out by the bedroom. So I don't have a single property that I just lease to like a family or something like that. We started this for two reasons. Number one, it's way more lucrative for the landlord or the property owner. And number two, it's actually a lot cheaper for each individual tenant if all they're looking for is a place to live. So at my properties, the average room is about $900 per month. It's in the Seattle area, so it's very expensive. I mean, in Seattle, you're lucky to find a studio for about $2,000.
Yep.
But at one of my properties, $900 per month, and that includes all utilities. And most of our houses have air conditioning. I also stock the place, all of my places, I stock them with toilet paper, paper towels, hand soap, dish soap, Clorox wipes, garbage bags, all that good stuff. We have a pest control company come once every 3 months to make sure that no bugs get inside any of the houses. And I also have a weekly house cleaner. She cleans every single house from top to bottom on a weekly basis. So you're getting all of that for one price. And it's mutually beneficial for both parties to the point where we've actually never missed a month's rent. In 4 years, we've never even missed a day's rent across any room in any of our properties. They were always 100% occupied.
How are you able to find renters so effectively where there's no turnover, no gap even?
Yeah, so I am pretty aggressive with my marketing strategy. So as you mentioned, we met over an app that you started, RentTube. So I've gotten a few tenants from that. I also am a big user of Facebook, so using Facebook Marketplace and just normal housing groups within Facebook. Craigslist is a go-to for me as well, and there are a few other websites where I list all the properties for rent. But because I have such a big footprint with advertising, I have so many inquiries coming in on a monthly basis that usually I have rooms lined up. Like if I know in 3 months, for example, somebody's going to be moving out, I usually have somebody lined up then. And then I know like right away, I'm not going to miss any rent and it's already scheduled out.
Right. And do you have like an email list or like a spreadsheet with people who have submitted inquiries? Like what does that actually look like?
I do, yeah. So I actually have a waiting list right now, which is crazy. So I have an Excel spreadsheet that I put together, which is just people, and literally I've had people, this has happened a few times. I don't have any rooms available, but they proactively pay a deposit and complete the background check, giving me money without any rooms available, just saying, hey, when a room comes open, I want it. That's happened 2 or 3 times now, and it's just amazing. And one of the young women who was the first to do that, she's now been renting from me for, I think, just over 2 years. So, yeah, it's been great. But yeah, we do have kind of a waiting list now of folks wanting to get in rooms. And it's because, again, Seattle is so crazy expensive that people are happy to pay $900, assuming all utilities are included.
That's amazing. And because the way you do manage your properties, like you said, you provide the basics, bathroom essentials, all that sort of stuff. Most landlords don't even touch that, consider that, right? Mm-hmm. Have you done that since you started renting out properties? And how you manage your properties evolved since you started when you bought your first property at 23?
Really good question. So the first property we bought was for us to live in. And when I say us, I'm talking about me and my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend. But we bought, a 3-story house. It was pretty big. We knew that we didn't need all that space to ourselves. So we decided to rent out the rooms. But in doing that, we also knew, well, we're paying utilities no matter what, because we're going to heat the whole house. We're going to have air conditioning in the whole house. We're going to have cable and internet. So we'll just advertise that as included. And then what we thought about is, what's going to be problematic down the line? And the thing we kept coming back to is mess in the house. So we hired a maid. And the other thing we thought of is, if you share a bathroom with a roommate and you're always buying the toilet paper and the soap, but your roommate's always using all of it up, eventually that's really going to piss you off and you're going to be frustrated. And so we decided to solve that problem before it even occurred. So supplying all the stuff was always part of our plan. The maid we have bumped up to once a week. When we first started, it was once every 2 weeks. And that just didn't seem to be enough with the just sheer amount of people that were living in our house. At the time, we had 4 roommates plus me and my wife, so 6 people. So having a maid come once a week was very helpful.
Yeah. And so basically you saw that there was these common problems that happen when you live with other people. And you're like, okay, let's just not make those things. Let's not have us fight about dishes or cleanliness or who bought this or that. I'll just take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
See, yeah, that's pretty different. And did your property start like that, or did you figure that out like maybe a couple months into it?
No, they actually all started like that. So before,
Okay.
I mean, when we decided we were going to do this, we just thought together like, well, what's been some of our pain points of in the past when we've lived with roommates? And we just kind of made a list, and that's what we came up with. So not a whole lot has changed as far as the way we run our business. The only thing that we've kind of, just figured out as we've gone along is fridge space. So some of the properties we bought a couple of extra fridges or freezers for. So every house we have now has at least 2 refrigerators and at least 2 freezers. Some houses have 3 freezers if they can fit them.
Dude, you're the landlord of the year. That is awesome.
Well, thank you.
That is awesome. So because I mean, roommate disputes happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of people not only, choose sometimes not to buy and own rental properties, but definitely don't go as far as like living with their tenants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any sort of problems at all as far as other people living with each other or anything?
There have been. So I do my best to match each house by personality. Like we have one all-female house, we have one all-male house, then we have 4 mixed houses. And within those houses, I try to do my best to make sure that everyone has similar interests. But it's not an exact science, and every once in a while there is someone who is a terrible roommate. So I have had to evict or non-renew, is probably the better term, 5 people. But that's over the course of 4 years across 34 rooms. So not too bad. And again, every time I've had to get somebody out, it was super easy to get somebody in. No money lost for me. But yeah, every once in a while you'll find someone who's there because they want to save money, but their personality type just isn't suited for living with other people. And those are the people that, never pick up after themselves, or, they want to smoke in the house, or, they want to be able to do whatever they want to do. And those people should go live in their own apartment, and it's better for them too.
Right. But like you said, most of the people who live in your properties they renew with you guys. Most people want to stay there, and the prices and the value of what you guys are offering is way beyond a studio or a 1-bedroom in Seattle or any suburb. Talk about the community aspect a little bit. I know you've showed pictures of you guys like have bowling alleys and stuff like that. That's definitely very much co-living vibes, in which it's, the people you live with are not liabilities, but they're value adds to your life. And I think you've understood that probably better than almost anyone. How did you sort of help, I guess, facilitate that community among tenants?
Sure. Great question. So it has changed a little bit as we've grown, but when we first started, when we had 2 or 3 houses and we had 15 tenants at a max, we would organize parties where we would go. It wouldn't be at anyone's specific house, but we would go take them all bowling or take them all mini golfing. One year towards the winter time, I took all of my tenants ice skating, and it's just something that me and my wife paid for, and we were happy to do it. We had another one where we bought a bunch of food and we had a big picnic and a wiffle ball game. And I think, a lot of people hate the idea of having a landlord. They hate paying rent. And I wanted to make it so it didn't feel like that typical landlord-tenant relationship. I don't view my tenants as actual tenants. I view them as clients. And basically the way I operate my business is I'm running a business, and everyone who's renting from me is a client. And technically, yes, I'm getting rental income, and technically they are tenants. But the way I run it is, how would I treat my clients if I was running a sales organization? And I probably would put on, client days where it's like a client appreciation, and we have food for them and entertainment and all that stuff. And I come from a sales background. That's how I started making money to invest in real estate in the first place. And it's helped there, and it's really helped on the real estate side too. Now, I will say it's a little bit more difficult because we have so many tenants. We have like 35 of them now. So to get everyone together for bowling is quite difficult. Usually what happens when we have an event now is half the people show up, which is totally fine because everyone has, different schedules and stuff like that. But yeah, in the beginning when we were smaller, we were able to take everyone, and it was pretty easy.
Todd, I don't know how many times you've used that line, but that is money that you don't see them as tenants. You see them as clients.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there's a percentage higher than 1% of landlords who actually view their tenants in that sort of way, in which you trust them, respect them, and they're not just people who pay you rent. It's not a transactional thing. It's more like, hey, we're all here like living together. We're going to have some sort of fun and just be able to like hang out and be friends. That's really freaking cool, man.
Thank you.
What tips do you have or do you give to landlords that you talk to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So a lot of people want to sort of replicate what I've been able to do because it's so lucrative. So I'm happy to give tips to anyone who asks about the room shares. So many people just ask, the basic stuff like, oh, how do we make it so nobody fights, keep harmony in the house? The biggest thing, if you want to start a co-living space, I would say having some sort of system in place for organization is huge. So in all of our houses, every single tenant gets a shelf in the pantry with their name on it. It's labeled. And they also get their own cabinet, which is labeled. And then we have equity in the fridge space and freezer space too. So in addition to the bedroom or unit that they're renting, having space in the common area that's just for them, we also have little mail cubbies. So, there's a locking mailbox on the side of the street like most houses have, but every single tenant has a mail cubby. And when the mail is checked, it's slipped into their cubby there. So organizing the space is really huge. It makes it so no one's worried about their food getting stolen or, encroachment on personal space. So that's the first tip. And then the second tip, which is not a popular tip, but I have never done it and it served me very well. I've actually never raised the rent on any of my tenants. So when somebody moves out, I'll lease that room for a higher price for sure. But I have a guy who's been renting from me for 4 years. And he's paying exactly what he paid 4 years ago. And part of it goes back to that client relationship that I want to have is they made a choice that was at the time, my situation, the room that I had for rent, that was the best possible decision for them at the time. If it wasn't, they wouldn't have rented from me. They would have gone somewhere else. And they made that decision based on the price, the location, all of those things. And so I wanted to make that true for them as long as they lived here. As long as they live in one of my houses, I want it to be their best possible option. And so what I don't do is gouge them with a 10% increase every 6 months, which may be unpopular. But again, when you're doing the co-living space, it's so lucrative anyway that you don't need to do these rent raises. And it makes your tenants, or how I say clients, much happier when you're not nickeling and diming them.
That's awesome advice. And especially I think in general, there's negative stereotypes of landlords. I remember I commented on something on Twitter and I was like, well, sometimes there's bad tenants. And I literally had people sending me death threats.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, dude, I don't even own or manage rental properties. Like, y'all need to relax. But there are some negative stereotypes of being a landlord. And I think you defy every single one of them. Like, you are a true innovator. Not to pump you up too much, Todd, but that's really how you are. Let's do a little rapid fire round if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
We've never done this before, but the goal would be that I ask a short, quick question and you answer it in about 140 characters or less. Okay.
Got it.
All right. Beginning. I wish I had some sort of sound. Beginning now. What is your favorite business or finance book?
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Who is a business or finance person you look up to?
Elon Musk.
Name brand or store brand?
Name brand.
Interesting. Daily item that you or your wife splurge on?
LaCroix.
The biggest mistake people make in their 20s?
Spending too much money on stupid shit.
Damn, you passed that with flying colors, man.
Thank you. I know you were confused by my name brand approach.
Well, that was less for me, and that was more for the haters, so
Mm-hmm.
that they could understand that when you're going to Safeway, that instead of getting, you know, QFC LaCroix, you actually get the LaCroix or the bubbly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's for all the haters. Um, Todd has an amazing YouTube channel that we're going to put in the show notes. And thank you so much, Todd. Is there any other comments or things we didn't talk about that you feel like would be helpful to landlords or people operating or managing co-living spaces, since you've had so much success in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say anyone who's concerned about getting into it, it's so lucrative, you guys, and you can do it in a way that doesn't piss off your tenants. Like I mentioned before, I've never had to raise rent on anyone. And like, we didn't really talk numbers on this podcast, but just between 6 properties, and I live in one of them, we collect about 38 grand a month in gross rent. And out of that, after the mortgages, taxes, insurance, and all the expenses that I pay for, like the supplies and the maid and all that, like 13 grand per month is pure profit. So this is definitely the space. And Paul, your podcast is really good for people that are wanting to get into this space. And obviously, you're the founder of Rent Hoop and a few other companies. So I think that anyone could get value from tuning into your stuff and do it. Follow this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Wow, that's a great plug, Todd. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're gonna put Todd's YouTube channel at the in the show notes, and then obviously his CNBC thing, which has over 1 million views and got 2 million hits on their website. Todd, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on. Have a good one.